on how broking industry should fare, because I think the need for financial intermediation, the models of financial intermediation, the innovations, etc., are very much required and would continue to happen, give or take a few months here and there.
Well, I wanted to understand about your fears of how much non-performing assets might grow, Mr. Rai. There is an overarching fear across the banking and the non-banking space with respect to, loans to infrastructure companies, loans to SEBs, loans to SMEs, all of them going bad either because of the industrial slowdown or because of specific problems with infrastructure. What are your NPLs as of September 30th you expect? And do you expect some kind of a problem because of the slowdown that the NPLs could increase?
You are an acute observer of the scene, so you know that there is some fear of NPLs going up. The first thing that I would like to state, as far as IFCI is concerned, is we have not added any non-performing loan or assets over the last few months, and I don't think it's going to happen now. There are going to be issues in the economy as a whole. There are going to be issues arising out of deceleration in the rate of growth. There could be certain kind of concerns about delays in project implementation and all that. All that can happen, and that can have effect on the non-performing assets with the banks and lenders. IFCI itself is not, as I said, particularly affected at this point of time, and perhaps not likely to be affected in the near future. Over the longer run, these are concerns. These are not issues which a single or individual lender can address entirely on its own. There are, as I said, environment-related issues. Our own securities are strong, so we might be able to recover, but that's not exactly a cause of comfort if there are environmental concerns. And for that, perhaps what we need to look at is something like, maybe a resumption or acceleration in the rate of growth. That's the best antidote for NPLs.
So you're not giving me
let us see how the economy shapes up.
No, I just want to know whether you expect, say, a 20 basis points, a 40 or a half a percentage point increase in your gross NPLs as a percentage of your book, and also a specific number. What is your exposure to power sector in particular and to SEBs?
SEZs we have according
SEBs,
to
sir, state electricity boards.
No, we don't have any exposure to state electricity boards.
Okay.
We have just taken some exposure in Karnataka State Electricity Board, but that is still that is in a project which is kind of a special purpose vehicle. So it is not really in the State Electricity Board. As far as power is concerned, or even in general, we don't have any fresh NPL. As I said, we are not expecting any increase in NPLs. Gross non-performing loans and for IFCI have been coming down consistently because of recovery from the NPLs that we kind of inherited in our book. So those NPLs will continue to come down. The issue is of net NPAs. So therefore, net NPAs are not going up in the immediate future. We expect the situation as of September 30 not to be different from what it is today, which was around 1% or something like that.
Just a point to get back to where we began. Are you planning to set up a bank or convert yourself into a bank?
This is the issue on which I think greater clarity and thought is required. We will have to take a call again on whether we expect to be able to tackle the banking challenge all by ourselves. This itself would depend upon what kind of commitments or what kind of, let's say, rollout is envisaged in the final guidelines. I mean, what kind of capital adequacy do we need to reach? What kind of branch rollout do we need to reach? These are the exact issues which we'll have to wait and see. My own sense is, we expect banking to be a natural adjacency for us. We expect it to be a part of whatever, as I mentioned earlier, historical destiny for us. We want to take it forward. And if we cannot, for any reason whatsoever, if we think we are not sufficiently capable of taking it up on our own, I do not think that there should be any kind of reservation on the part of IFCI to look at entering into meaningful partnership with the similarly governed entities for taking this entire, let's say, mandate of banking further.
All right. Before we let you go, Mr. Rai, just one last word, because the market is so keenly awaiting IFCI factors. There is some talk of perhaps a raising of 750 to 1,000 crores that's doing the rounds in the market. Although you wouldn't like to comment, but would you give us any kind of ballpark range on what the valuations could perhaps be, how much would be raised, etc.?
I would like to comment just about this much, inshallah.
Well, Mr. Rai, actually, before we let you go, there has been a public interest litigation filed in the Supreme Court saying that, IFCI has got a lot of funds from the government and it still is at an arm's length relation from the government. Questions have also been raised on your appointment. Any comment you would want to make?
About the first part, about IFCI having got funds from the government, I think some historical background is necessary. IFCI belongs to a class of entities called development financial institutions. This is what IFCI was set up as way back in 1948. Now, why this category is important is there were 9 such all India financial institutions. Their business model, by definition, consisted in providing them concessional finance. I would urge you to go back to the last working group report by Reserve Bank of India in 2004, where RBI says definitionally all DFIs depend on concessional modes of funding. So this is not something which is exclusive for IFCI in terms of the business model of DFIs. All of them need and have had funding from the government, including those in the private sector. There are other entities also in the private sector which have received funding from the government or concessional kind of windows from the government. So this is about the first part. The second part is about the procedure of my appointment and so on and so forth. I, of course, was working with the government. I was working in the banking division. I took voluntary retirement. I applied for voluntary retirement on 5th of February 2007. I did not have any option to join IFCI at that point of time. Prior to 2007, I had actually been asked by the government to set up India Infrastructure Finance Company Limited in 2005, where I was working as executive director and so on. So there could have been, I would imagine, not only my association with the banking division, but this little bit of experience which I brought in working in the India Infrastructure Finance Company also, which might have persuaded the board of directors of IFCI, who had been actually looking for a regular managing director since 2004 and had not filled up the position, to look at me as an option, and I am very grateful for the opportunities that they gave me. IFCI was not going anywhere at that time. It had about 5,000 crores in losses. We have covered a lot of distance since then. We have added about 4,000 crores on the positive side to our net worth, so which is about 9 or 10,000 crores that have come into the company in that fashion, apart from very, very healthy profits, very, very smart growth in our asset book, no NPAs and so on. So I'm very, very happy with what I have done. Yes, there were press reports which do not do me much credit, but after 4.5 years, I think I should rise above personal considerations in reacting to this litigation. And I'm very, very sure that much of the information which has been out in the public for a long time because of some disgruntled employees who took VRS, but who believe that they still have claim upon IFCI, would not by itself be sufficient to tilt the balance of equity in the favor of the litigation and litigants. I would imagine that there is nothing much we can do about the VRS optees except have compassion and sympathy. But that's the way it is. I don't think that there is any implication that IFCI needs to worry about. IFCI is a great institution, looking forward to kind of doing the business that it has been doing and growing. And as I said, my personal destiny is something which I'm very sure Supreme Court will decide in my favor.
All right, Mr. I will leave it at that. Thank you very much for spending time for us today. All right, we need to take a break on that note. Markets in steady state. We'll come back with your favorite column, Bullseye, last day of an interesting week.